To be holy, living a life that is modeled on Christ, is the ideal for every Christian man or woman. It involves continuously and generously responding to a divine vocation. Each vocation is unrepeatable and has its unique place in the universal economy of salvation. The Church is a place of signs. Among these signs are men and women down the centuries who the Church puts forward as models of holiness attained either in a generous life for virtue or in the heroism of a martyr's death. Holiness is a goal for all to strive for, not just religious or priests. In 2003, His Excellency Cardinal Norberto Rivera Carrera made an addition to the list of the 112 causes introduced in the Republic of Mexico, that of the servant of God, Mother Mary Amada of the Infant Jesus Sanchez Muñoz. The hope is that one day she will be proposed as someone to be imitated in her devotion to God, for her love of her neighbor, especially the poor, and for her burning zeal for the promotion of the kingdom of God. The servant of God, Mother María Amada, was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco on September the 7th, 1895, and she was baptized Maria Regina, but at home she was always called Maria. She died on February the 4th, 1967, in the city of Arriaga, Chiapas. For the first 17 years of her life, she received the love of her family circle living at home. Coupled with human and Christian formation of home, she attended the normal Catholic school for girls. Later, in the city of Guadalajara in 1913, she joined the recently founded Order of the Incarnate Word and Blessed Sacrament, entering the monastery in Mascota, Jalisco. From her earliest days, she was taught a life of prayer and penance. She made her religious profession in 1919, receiving the name Maria Amada of the Child Jesus. She was perpetually professed in 1922, and 4 years later, in 1926, she went on to found a congregation of pontifical right, the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and Our Lady of Guadalupe in Guadalajara, Jalisco. Father Lazarus Valadez, her spiritual guide, helped her discern the will of God. She conducted her work of foundation with faith and strength. This was necessary because of difficulties arising from the fact that she was a professed member of the Order of the Incarnate Word, and from the religious persecution instigated by the presidential decree of Don Plutarco Elias Calles against the Church. In October 1930, the Archbishop of Guadalajara, Don Orozco Francisco Jimenez, granted her an indult of secularization, and she could devote herself fully to the new community which she gave the charism that she herself lived, an ardent love for Jesus' heart and zeal for the extension of his reign, along with the filial love for the Blessed Virgin of Guadalupe, whom she considered as the origin and inspiration of the works of the congregation. This work was established definitively in Azcapotzalco, Mexico City. From November 1931, Mother Maria Amada continued leading this congregation for women, working assiduously for its consolidation and expansion, and assuring the integral formation of the sisters in order to ensure the effectiveness of their apostolate. In 1947, when she received diocesan approval, 15 communities were already dedicated mostly to education of boarding pupils, schools, and homes for the elderly and the sick. The congregation began to spread outside Mexico from 1952 with a community in Cuba and later on in the United States, where sisters devoted themselves to an apostolate of collaboration in priestly ministry through prayer and domestic work. In the decades of 50s and 60s, the congregation kept expanding in several states of Mexican Republic with the same ministries. They also opened missions among the inhabitants of Chiapas and Hidalgo in Mexico. Mother Maria Amada had the joy of seeing the papal approval of the congregation with the decree of praise given by His Holiness Pope Paul VI. On July 29, 1964, the servant of God was 72 years old, and although her health was often poor, she remained constantly active promoting her daughters in their spiritual and apostolic life till her death in 1967. At that time, the congregation had 336 sisters distributed in 68 communities in 15 states of the Mexican Republic, Italy, Cuba, and the United States. We believe that this servant of God lived as spiritually centered on the heart of Jesus, and that this shaped a loving woman of God who sought to discover the will of God. She possessed a tireless missionary zeal for the salvation of men, and she lived with extraordinary charity to all, especially the poorest. She had a great love and reverence for the priest and for people consecrated to God. She lived humility, abandonment to the will of God, and obedience to the hierarchy of the Church. Her life was the opposite of the individualism, hedonism, and consumerism that prevails in the society of today, where the culture of death causes many men and women to feel empty. Maybe without realizing it, they are thirsting for a genuine human flourishing. By her life, Mother Maria Amada proposes to men and women of today another path, a path of human fulfillment, a path of holiness where they can experience God's love and live out an unconditional surrender to others. She calls back to the gospel values that lead to true happiness. We are invited to be humble, pure of heart, to give our life to our friends, to experience the pleasure of serving others without expecting anything in return. Servant of God, Maria Amada.